Hi fabulous people, I'm Yvonne Sims. Too often girls and women are told that if they are assertive and dominant, then they're bossy. The reality is that it's not that they're bossy, it's that they're natural leaders who are confident in their own skin and their abilities to lead from within. This week, I had an amazing opportunity to participate in the Girl Scouts leadership camp in North Carolina. The Girl Scouts actually invited 68 girls to participate in a 5-day conference in which the girls were immersed in all kind of, team building, meeting new friends, confidence building, as well as leadership skills. It was really cool to see each girl be taught how to take their passion and what they're really driven by and merge that with their skills and actually develop an action plan in which they could take back to their communities to make a difference. So you have to understand Girl Scouts. The reason why they are so successful and the reason why I love them is because the Girl Scouts mission is to build girls with courage, confidence, and characters who are dedicated to transforming the world. And so I got to be there as both a mentor and as a leader. The first day I was there, I met this incredible girl. And I remember she was sitting next to me at lunch. And every time somebody would ask, one of the women would ask a question, she and her best friend, who she'd grown up with, she would immediately answer with the most insightful answers. And then when the question was turned on her, it was her friend's turn to answer. Her friend was shy and introverted and she struggled to answer. And so this young lady would then coach and kind of give her girlfriend some beginner starters and then her friend would finish. It was kind of neat to watch her interact. And so at one point during lunch, since she was seated next to me, I started to try to carry on a conversation with her and it just fell flat. And it was just something a little awkward. I couldn't quite figure it out. But again, if I asked the group questions, she would answer. And so I didn't think anything more of it, but I just thought, I was thinking to myself, what could I do different? Well, the next day I come and it's the final day and it's a big deal for this camp. It's held at Meredith College. They were having lunch in their dining hall, which is amazing. The girls were going to have soda and ice cream. But more importantly, they were celebrating the different projects that they were going to take back to their communities and all the great learning and insights and the ways that they've grown. And so as I'm sitting I got to randomly pick a table and I'm sitting at a table and I'm meeting all the girls. Well, there was a girl to my left who was reading a book. I mean, literally this big Harry Potter book. And I look at her, I look at the book, and then I realize it's the same young lady from the day before sitting next to me. And so I said, hey, don't I know you? Didn't I sit next to you at lunch yesterday? And she kind of looks up from her book and she says, I don't know. And then she goes back in her book. Kind of odd. I said, yeah, I think that's who you are. She says, okay. And then she goes back in her book. So I leave it alone. And I pose questions for the table and then she chimes in. Again, I do it again and she chimes in. So we're starting to eat lunch. And at some point she looks at me and she looks up from her book and she says, I like Pokemon. And I said, okay. I said, well, it's interesting. I just learned this week that the founder of Pokemon, who is not only a billionaire and created all these things, and she says, I know that. My mom told me that. And I was just like, I'm not done. I said, well, did you know that he's also autistic? And she said, yeah, my mom told me that too. And I'm autistic. And I was like, whoa. In that moment, it all made sense. Now I understood why she was behaving the way she was. Not only is she autistic, she has Asperger's. She's very high functioning, incredibly focused. So when the questions would go out to the group, she could focus on that and answer. This is a young lady, because of her condition, she doesn't read social cues. So somebody like me who's all animated is probably like throwing her off. And because her girlfriend wasn't there with her, who she had grown up with the next day at lunch, the book was her comfort. And I remember in that moment, I looked at her and I said, oh my goodness, I get it now. That's why you're brilliant. And she just just took a step back and sat back in her seat. And I said, you have such a brilliant mind. I listened to you yesterday and today when you answer questions, you speak with such confidence. And I want you to keep doing what you're doing because it matters. You are a natural leader. Eleanor Roosevelt said, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. We give people permission to speak to us, and we decide on whether it affects us. You know, I want to encourage the young ladies who were at the camp. There was one lady, young girl in particular, Kate, who was all smiles. And I told her too, keep smiling because it transforms people, because it heals people. There was another young lady I met who's Kendall. She's going to be an attorney. I met so many amazing girls at this camp, and I'm just so grateful and humbled that I got to be a part of it. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Shanika. Thank you to the Girl Scouts for bringing me here, because truly it was my honor to be there amongst these girls. They inspired me. This young lady and what she's having to overcome to even be there. Wow, I can't even imagine. But you know what? That camp and the transformation that happened in all those girls' lives was made possible because people like you and I give. And that's the most important thing. 68 girls got to attend this year, but they can do 100. That's their capacity. I want you to consider giving to the Girl Scouts. I'll put the details in my Facebook and my YouTube network, but at the end of the day, please consider giving. Each one of these girls came and their families didn't have to pay $1 for the 5 days that they were spending the night there and all the wonderful food and activities and things they learned. But it cost the Girl Scouts $850 per girl. So we can each make a difference in small and big ways. You never know how your donation may spark the next fire within a girl that will transform this entire world. Until next time, beloved, be strong and courageous.